This is my dog, Lexi. Have you ever met a dog that acts like her? Generally uncomfortable, nervous, doesn't want to ever look you in the eyes, and seems pretty fearful of just about everything that they come into contact with? Then you've probably met an anxious dog. Now, as someone with an anxious dog as a pet, I've seen the signs of anxiety and stress in my dog, and I've seen how it affects her overall happiness and quality of life, which is never a good feeling as a dog owner. So Lexi has inspired me today to dive into the answers of a few big questions that are going to be, what are the causes of anxiety and why do we need to be treating it? What are the symptoms of anxiety in dogs, and how can we be treating it? That brings us to our causes. So according to the American Kennel Club and Pet MD, things that predispose your dog to anxiety are going to be small breeds, dogs without consistent socialization and training, dogs that have been moved around from home to home a lot, separation from their owners, and the general fear of noises, places, people, and strange objects. Now, why is this important? Why do we need to be treating it? Well, according to research done by the Journal of Veterinary Behavior, 1 in 5 owners think that stress in their dogs has no psychological or physical consequences, which is simply not true. Animals feel stress in just the same way that we do, and it affects them just as negatively. In that same study, it was also found that less than 25% of owners were able to correctly identify the top 11 symptoms of stress in their own dogs. As well as elderly people are a lot more likely to misinterpret anxiety and pin abnormal behaviors as normal. This poses a huge issue because we don't want our dogs to be unhappy, and since they can't communicate, we need to be able to identify when they're struggling through their behaviors. If not, this can lead to malnourished and ill dogs that have bald spots and sores from licking themselves, diarrhea and vomiting from not eating, and even worse, dogs that are mislabeled as disobedient and dominant as a result of anxiety and poor training to combat that, which eventually leads to abandonment and euthanization of really good dogs. So question number 2, what are the symptoms? Well, the most obvious signs are going to be what display the general public's knowledge of anxiety, which are going to be trembling, whining, and mild aggression. But other things that are really easy to see in dogs are going to be excessive panting, avoiding eye contact with people, moving away when somebody's trying to pet them, hiding, and trying to exit the vicinity that's stressing them out. According to the book Stress in Dogs by Martina Scholes and Clarissa von Reinhardt, restlessness is also another symptom. When your dog can't seem to relax or sit still and they seem like on high alert, paying attention to all their surroundings and noises around them. These are most obvious because something is visibly wrong with your dog or your dog doesn't seem to be in a good mood when you see these things. But there are a lot of other signs that you need to pay a little closer attention to. These are going to be things that your dog does that may just seem like normal dog behaviors, like yawning, lip licking, air sniffing, excessive barking, shaking like a wet dog, mounting other dogs and objects, and excessive self-grooming. The thing you have to pay attention to here is what situations your dog is doing this in and the frequency of the behavior. If you find a pattern, it's probably because something is stressing your dog out. Now, the next few require a little extra explanation as to why your dog is doing it, because it's not because they're dumb or disobedient or mad at you. They're usually just trying to send you a message in the only way that they know how. So, according to the book Stress in Dogs, destroying objects is a major sign of boredom and loneliness caused from separation anxiety, as well as frequent urination and defecation, especially if it's done inside the house past the potty training phase, is usually a sign of general anxiety. The Veterinary Centers of America say that territorialness of objects and their owners is usually a sign of fearful anxiety from that intruder being in their space. Now, most of these behaviors are going to be more expected or considered kind of normal in some situations, but the big red flag is when they start happening suddenly or frequently. And if it's consistent across all areas of your dog's life, then it's definitely an issue that requires some treatment. Which brings us to our third question, how can we treat this? And according to Pet MD, quote, treatment options are usually multifactorial and based on the degree of anxiety and willingness of the owner to get involved. So for everybody, it'll look a little different, but for situational anxiety, like cars, fireworks, and visitors coming over, we can use a lot of medication. Usually these are going to look like pills and gels that lightly sedate your dog through the central nervous system for muscle and body relaxation. These are going to be things like Valium and Xanax, just like we use in humans. For general anxiety, there's also long-term medications that act more as an antidepressant that increase serotonin in your dog's brain, like Paxil and Zoloft. But if medication isn't your first choice, behavior modification is always a surefire way to treat anxiety long-term. Dogs are creatures of habit, and so using structured training can really help relieve uncertainty in these stressed out dogs. Trying a behavioral therapist or a dog trainer is always a good option, but these are things to do at home regardless. For situational anxiety, the Veterinary Centers of America suggest to 1, remove your dog from the situation, 2, try not to overcomfort them because this will only confirm their fears further, and to 3, distract your dog with routine commands and activities because this can be very comforting for your dog. For general anxiety, Pet MD suggests to stick to a schedule and routine in everyday life, especially if you're going to a new place or meeting a new person. Using a general standard introduction can really relieve the fear that comes from uncertainty with a lot of these dogs. For separation anxiety, the CCSPCA suggests to leave complicated toys or puzzles around like Kongs or a long-term bone or the TV on to distract your dog when you're not home, as well as using calming coats or t-shirts that apply a light amount of pressure to your dog's torso, which mimics a swaddling to comfort them when you're not around. But the best way to combat separation anxiety is always to tire your dog out with a lot of exercise before you leave the house so that when you're gone, they just get to sleep. There's a lot of ways to help your dog stop being stressed out, and there's not one single right way. The best thing is to find whatever works for you and your dog, and that may require a little bit of trial and error. Overall, there's a lot to pay attention to make sure that your dog is living an anxiety-free, happy life. What makes my dog stressed? A whole lot of things. Why do I need to make sure that my dog is not stressed? Because if we love them, we should care about their well-being. How can I even tell if my dog is stressed? We have to know our dogs really well and pay attention really closely. And how can I fix it if they are stressed? Well, there's a lot of options to try out. The biggest takeaway from today is to pay attention to your pets. Most likely, they're always trying to tell you something in their own unique way, and we always want to make sure that that message isn't a bad thing. So, using the info from today, it's very possible to tune in, read your pets, and make adjustments accordingly. Because what really matters is that we're trying our best to make our pets as happy and as healthy as they can possibly be. Because remember, a happy pet makes a happy home.